Welcome to RELI 160A1, Gods, Goddesses, and Demons, in which we'll be discussing divinity in South Asia. I'm your instructor, Professor Caleb Simmons. And in this brief lecture, I'm going to talk about what our goals are for this course, a little bit more about what we'll be doing, and to outline our learning outcomes, and then tell you a little bit about the assignments and all of the modules. So this course is an introduction to the multiple concepts of the divine in South Asia. We explore many different types of religious traditions, primarily focusing on Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, all religions that arise in South Asia, which is largely known for most of its historical period as India, which includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and sometimes Afghanistan and Bhutan. So in order to be able to really understand divinity, we're going to look at a lot of primary texts and translation, examine iconography, watch some rituals as they unfold, to be able to understand how humans and divine beings interact. So when we talk about divinity, we're going to look at it from a slightly different perspective. Additionally, we're going to look at things like semi-divine beings, a lot of different things like demons, zombies, Gandharvas, which are kind of like celestial musicians, Apsarases, who are celestial dancers, all of these in addition to gods and goddesses to really help us understand the full spectrum of divinity in South Asia. And so through this, what we're trying to do is really to help you learn some new interesting traditions, but also learn to think critically about the ways that people from different cultures view the world around them. So at the end of this course, what I want you to be able to accomplish is to be able to outline the varieties of divinity in South Asia, to illustrate knowledge, your thoughts, and reasoning clearly and effectively in forms appropriate to the academic study of religion. So that means taking a critical academic approach, not an insider theological or practitioner approach. I want you to be able to demonstrate basic literacy of the major religious traditions of South Asia, so this will allow you to be able to articulate your ideas better. And then one thing we're really aimed at is to be able to identify and analyze key historical and cultural factors that have influenced the way religious traditions view divinity. And then lastly, I want you to be able to apply the necessary vocabulary to intelligently discuss different religions and cultures. So as we explore this in South Asia, the course will be divided into 4 different modules. The first module that we'll look at is broadly titled, What is Divinity? And in this portion of the class, we're not only going to just introduce the idea of South Asian divinities, and we'll do brief introductions on Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, but we're also going to think more broadly about how people from different cultures throughout the world discuss the idea of religion and divinity. So we won't be just looking at South Asian materials on this module. We'll be thinking about how theologians from the Christian tradition or religious studies scholars also think about what it means to have a being that's supernatural and people and beings that are, maybe you could say, subnatural. And when you think about things from the netherworld that are less than human. So after we sort of establish these as the way that we're going to talk about divinity, next we'll move into a module in which we'll discuss semi-divine beings. And so we'll look at a plethora of different beings from South Asia, from celestial musicians and dancers to demons, zombies, vampires, a lot of the different beings that populate the divine world for South Asia. After we've sort of established all of the different semi-divine beings, then we'll shift over to talking about the gods and goddesses. In this portion of the class, we're going to be focusing on the mythology primarily from Hinduism, but bringing in different examples from Buddhism and Jainism also. So in the third module, we're actually going to begin by discussing sort of the historical roots of divinity in South Asia, starting with the corpus of texts known as the Vedas. If we'll look at the Vedas, in which the deities are personifications of natural phenomena, and then we'll look at some of the philosophical concepts that are introduced that start speculating more about humanity's place within the cosmos and asking the big questions about, why do we suffer? Why are we born? Where do we go when we die? And we'll see how this transitions the traditions of South Asia to start thinking about divinity in a different way, and we see the rise of devotion. So this module will be called From the Fire to Devotion, in which we move from the Vedic fire ritual to the devotional practices of Hindu temple worship. In the last module, we'll really fully explore all of the mythologies of the gods, and we'll start to look at how once you have theology and devotion arise in South Asia, there's also competition that naturally arises in which people are trying to place themselves in conversation with the gods to really figure out what the meaning of life is. So for me to be able to assess you in this course, of course, we have to have assignments and grading. The two major components of the grade are going to be a midterm and final exam. These will take place roughly after the second module and then again after the fourth module. They're not cumulative. And to be able to prepare for these, I've actually uploaded after every reading and lecture, there's a practice quiz. And these practice quizzes will consist of 5 different questions. You can take them as many times as you want. And these same questions will eventually populate the exam in sort of random order. So this will be able to help you understand what the most important thing from each reading is and also prepare you as a sort of a study guide for the exams. Another large portion of the grade is going to be coming from your discussion posts. So for each module, you're going to be required to write a discussion post in which you respond to a prompt that I have given you. These discussion posts aren't just sort of a reflective or personal opinion, but they're to be written sort of as an academic essay in which you're really trying to cite sources to make an argument that's built through a thesis. So part of this is to help you learn to approach academic writing more confidently through writing very short discussion posts. And after each discussion post after it's due, before the discussion board closes, you have 24 hours in which you need to respond to 3 of your peers' posts. And so there's a evaluation form in which you will identify their thesis, tell the person how strong you think the thesis is, and you will point out the strengths and weakness of the essay. So this is twofold. One, of course, is to give feedback to the person who wrote it. The other is to help you also try to identify these things and in turn help your own writing. And part of the reason why we're focusing on feedback and integrating helpful critiques into our writing is because the last portion of the assignments is your final revised paper. So what I ask for you to do in this is to take your original discussion board post, look at the feedback from your peers, your grading feedback that I've given you, and then you compile all 3 of the posts into one larger paper, working on all the things that people say are weaknesses and really highlighting the strengths that were already there. So that final paper will be 20% of your overall grade. Your original discussion post, each of the total is going to be 15 points, and your peer reviews, which are actually quite easy to complete, also are 15% of your final grade. All of those practice quizzes, as I said, you can take them as many times as you want to make sure you get it correctly. They don't actually factor into your final grade other than preparing you for the exam and making sure you know all the most important things in all of the modules. Additionally, there's a few extra credit assignments that pair up with all of the different modules in which we move from the context of looking at text, but look at how people on the ground actually interact with divinity at different divine or sacred sites. And so you can do these and earn quite a bit of extra credit throughout the course. My goal is not for this course to be something that's extremely hard and difficult to get a good grade. The extra credit, if you do it, you'll actually definitely get a good grade in the course, but it's to make sure that you're able to learn something and then apply that knowledge, developing some broader academic skills in which you can transfer something that you've read into actually applying it. So this is something that you can use in whatever field you go into, being able to use critical thought to analyze something and apply that knowledge. So I hope this introduction to the course has been helpful in helping you orient exactly what our goals are and how we're going to try to accomplish those goals. So I hope you enjoy this class, and I'll see you next time.